I was 19 years old when this happened. My family wasn't doing great financially. My mom worked 2 jobs, and after my dad left, things became even harder. When summer break started after my first year of college, I knew I needed to find work. After a week of searching, I got a part-time job at an old storage warehouse on the edge of town. The place wasn't exactly what you'd imagine when you hear warehouse. It had originally been built in the 1950s and had changed ownership several times. Most of the building was used to store old office furniture, records, and equipment from businesses that had gone bankrupt. The pay was decent, and they needed someone immediately. I didn't ask many questions. I wish I had. The warehouse sat alone near a stretch of abandoned railroad tracks. Every morning I'd take the bus there, clock in, and spend 8-hour shifts cataloging boxes. There were only 4 employees. My supervisor, Rick, an older maintenance worker named Frank, a college guy named Dylan, and me. The building was enormous. Long concrete hallways connected giant storage rooms filled with shelves that stretched almost to the ceiling. It was easy to feel alone there. Too alone. The first strange thing happened during my 3rd week. I was carrying a clipboard through storage room C when I noticed someone standing at the far end of an aisle. At first, I assumed it was Dylan. The figure appeared tall and thin, completely motionless. I raised my hand. "Hey." No response. The person remained still. I started walking toward them. The aisle was almost 100 feet long. As I got closer, something felt wrong. The lighting was dim, but I realized I couldn't make out any details. No face, no clothing, nothing. Just darkness, like a silhouette. Then I blinked, and it was gone. I stopped walking. The aisle was empty. I searched both exits. Nobody was there. I remember laughing nervously and telling myself it was a trick of the lighting. Nothing more. But after that day, I started noticing the shadow everywhere. Sometimes it stood between shelves. Sometimes it appeared at the end of hallways. Sometimes I'd catch it in the corner of my eye. Every single time it vanished before I got close. At first, I kept it to myself. I didn't want my coworkers thinking I was crazy. But eventually, I mentioned it to Dylan during lunch. He laughed. "Probably the warehouse ghost." I smiled. "You serious?" "No." Then his smile faded slightly. "Actually, people have said weird stuff about this place." "What kind of stuff?" He shrugged. "People hearing footsteps, seeing movement, typical creepy building stories." I laughed it off, but something about his answer bothered me, because he didn't sound entirely joking. The sightings became more frequent and closer. One evening, I was working overtime. Most of the warehouse was empty. I was entering inventory into a computer when I noticed movement in the reflection of the monitor. Someone was standing directly behind me. I spun around. Nobody. My heart nearly exploded. Then I looked back at the screen. The reflection was gone. I couldn't focus for the rest of the shift. A few days later, things got worse. I was organizing files in a small records room. There was only one door, one way in, one way out. I spent nearly 30 minutes alone inside. Then I heard breathing, slow, heavy, behind me. I froze. The sound was unmistakable. Someone was standing close enough that I should have felt their breath. I turned around. Nobody. The room was empty. But as I stared toward the shelves, I noticed something. Near the back wall stood the shadow, closer than ever before. Maybe 15 feet away, motionless, watching me. My stomach dropped. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then the overhead lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. When they stabilized, the shadow was gone. I sprinted from the room. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined that figure standing beside my bed. Watching, waiting. The next morning, I considered quitting. But my family needed the money. So I went back. A week later, I finally asked Frank if he'd ever experienced anything strange in the warehouse. The old maintenance worker became unusually quiet. Then he sighed. I was wondering when you'd ask. The answer immediately made me uncomfortable. What do you mean? Frank looked around to make sure nobody was nearby. Then he lowered his voice. Have you been seeing a shadow? I felt cold. How do you know that? His expression told me everything, because he'd seen it too. According to Frank, employees had reported the same thing for years. A dark figure, always watching, always disappearing. Nobody knew what it was. Management ignored the stories. People eventually stopped talking about it, but the sightings never completely went away. That conversation scared me more than anything I'd experienced before, because now I knew it wasn't my imagination. The final encounter happened near the end of summer. I was working a closing shift alone. Rick had left early. Dylan was off. Frank was repairing something outside. The warehouse felt eerily silent. Around 7 p.m., I was checking inventory in the oldest section of the building, a place rarely used anymore. The shelves there contained records dating back decades. Dust covered everything. As I walked down an aisle, I suddenly noticed the shadow standing ahead. It wasn't disappearing this time. It remained perfectly still, waiting. For reasons I still don't understand, I kept walking toward it. Maybe I was tired of being afraid. Maybe I wanted answers. The distance between us shrank. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. The shadow remained motionless. Then I saw something behind it. A door. One I'd never noticed before. The figure slowly stepped aside, almost as if it wanted me to see it. Then it vanished. Not disappeared. Vanished. Like smoke. I stared at the hidden door.
It blended into the wall so well that I had never noticed it before. My curiosity overcame my fear. I opened it. The room behind the door was tiny. No windows, no lights, just shelves filled with old documents.
I used my phone flashlight. Most of the files were decades old. Then I found a box labeled Employee Records. Inside were personnel files from previous owners. One file immediately caught my attention. A young woman, 19 years old, the same age as me. She had worked part-time during summer break, just like me. Then I saw the incident report attached to her file. My blood ran cold. In 1987, she had gone missing inside the warehouse. For 3 days, nobody knew where she was. Eventually, workers discovered her trapped inside a hidden maintenance compartment behind a collapsing wall. She had died before rescuers found her. The compartment was located directly behind the section where I had found the hidden room. I continued reading. Then I froze. The employee photo slipped from my fingers. Because the girl looked almost exactly like me. Same hair, same facial structure, same age. The resemblance was unbelievable. I left the room and immediately found Frank. When I showed him the file, he became pale. Apparently, he remembered hearing about the incident years ago. Nobody ever spoke about it anymore. The warehouse eventually changed ownership. The story faded, but not completely. I finished my final weeks there without another sighting. The shadow never returned, not once. It's been several years since then. I still don't know what I saw. Maybe it was a ghost. Maybe it was something else. But I can't shake one thought. The shadow never harmed me. It never chased me, never touched me, never threatened me. It only watched.
And on that final day, it led me directly to the hidden room, to the truth. Sometimes I wonder if the shadow wasn't haunting the warehouse at all. Maybe it was simply waiting for someone to remember her. And once she finally was remembered,
She didn't need to stay anymore. I've been obsessed with ghosts for as long as I can remember. While other kids watched superhero movies, I spent my time watching paranormal investigations, reading stories about haunted places and searching forums where people claimed they'd seen things they couldn't explain. I never believed every story. In fact, I was skeptical, but I wanted proof, real proof. I wanted to know whether ghosts actually existed. When summer break arrived after my sophomore year of college, I decided I was finally going to find out. I wish I hadn't. A few miles outside my town sat an abandoned bungalow that everyone knew about. It was hidden beyond a long dirt road surrounded by woods. The house had been empty for over 30 years. People called it Hollow Creek Bungalow. Every local ghost story somehow involved that place. Teenagers claimed they'd seen lights inside. Others reported hearing voices. One man swore he saw someone standing in an upstairs window, even though the building had been abandoned for decades. Naturally, I became obsessed. For years, I wanted to explore it. Now I had an entire school break with nothing planned. So I packed a sleeping bag, food, flashlights, batteries, a camera, and enough supplies to spend 3 nights there alone. My goal was simple: stay inside, record everything, prove whether ghosts were real or not. The bungalow looked worse in person. The roof sagged, several windows were broken, paint peeled from every wall. Nature had begun swallowing parts of the structure. Still, the building felt strangely intact, like it wasn't as abandoned as it should have been. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed the silence. No birds, no insects, nothing. The woods outside seemed dead quiet. I remember finding that odd, but I ignored it. The first night was disappointing. Nothing happened. I walked through every room, recorded videos, took pictures, asked stupid questions into the darkness. Any spirits here? Can you hear me? Nothing. No sounds. No movement. No ghostly encounters. I went to sleep feeling embarrassed. Maybe I'd wasted my summer break. The second day was different. I started noticing small things, little things, things that were easy to explain individually. A chair that seemed slightly moved. A door I didn't remember opening. Footprints in dust that weren't there earlier. I kept telling myself there had to be logical explanations. Maybe I was forgetting things. Maybe animals were getting inside. Still, a feeling of unease began growing in my stomach. That evening, I explored the upstairs. At the end of a hallway sat a bedroom. Unlike every other room, this one was almost empty. Just a rusted bed frame. Nothing else. I walked inside. The temperature instantly dropped. Not a little, a lot. It felt like entering a freezer. My arms erupted in goosebumps. Then I heard a noise, a soft knock, behind me. I spun around. Nobody. The hallway was empty. A few seconds later, another knock echoed from downstairs. Then another. Then silence. I searched the entire bungalow. Found nothing. That night, I reviewed my camera footage. Everything seemed normal. Until I reached a clip recorded earlier upstairs. I nearly dropped my laptop. In the bedroom video, there was someone standing in the corner. A person-shaped figure. Perfectly still. I never saw it while filming. The camera captured it for less than 3 seconds. Then it vanished. No walking away. No fading. Just gone. I watched the footage dozens of times. The figure remained. Every time. I barely slept. The third day should have been my last. I should have left. Instead, I became excited. For the first time, I thought I might actually find evidence. So I stayed. That decision changed my life. The strange activity increased dramatically after sunset. Footsteps echoed above me, despite me being on the highest floor. Doors slammed somewhere in the house. Whispers seemed to drift through walls. Every sound disappeared when I investigated. Around midnight, I started hearing something else. Breathing, not mine, someone else's. Slow, heavy, nearby. I searched room after room. Nobody. Yet the breathing continued, sometimes behind me, sometimes beside me, sometimes directly outside whatever room I occupied. By 2 a.m., I was terrified. But I was also stubborn. I wanted answers. At around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps descending the staircase. Slow, measured, one step at a time. I stood in the living room gripping a flashlight. The footsteps continued. Creak, creak, creak. Whoever was walking sounded heavy. The sound reached the bottom of the stairs, then stopped. I pointed my flashlight toward the staircase. Nothing was there, but something had changed. The darkness beneath the staircase looked deeper than before, almost solid, like a hole. Then I saw it, a face, peeking from the darkness, watching me. My flashlight slipped from my hand. For a split second, I saw pale skin, black eyes, a smile that stretched far too wide. Then it vanished. I grabbed the flashlight and ran upstairs. Every survival instinct screamed at me to leave, but fear made me do the opposite. I locked myself in the bedroom at the end of the hall. The freezing bedroom. I sat there shaking, listening, waiting. Then I heard footsteps again. This time they weren't downstairs. They were in the hallway, coming toward me, slow, one step, then another, then another. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Silence followed, complete silence. For nearly 5 minutes. Then came 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The doorknob slowly turned. The door creaked open, and what I saw remains burned into my memory years later. Standing outside the room was a man. At least it looked like a man. Tall, thin, wearing what appeared to be old clothing. His face looked wrong, not distorted, not monstrous, just wrong, like every feature was slightly misplaced. His eyes sat too low, his smile stretched too high. His skin looked pale gray, and he wasn't blinking. The thing stared directly at me, then spoke. 1 sentence, 5 words, words I'll never forget. "You weren't supposed to stay." The voice sounded like multiple people speaking simultaneously. Men, women, children, all layered together. The moment it spoke, every light on my equipment turned off. The room became completely dark. I screamed. I don't care how pathetic that sounds. I screamed. When my flashlight flickered back on seconds later, the doorway was empty. The figure was gone. I ran. I grabbed nothing. Not my camera, not my laptop, not my supplies. I sprinted down the stairs and out the front door. I didn't stop running until I reached the road. Then I drove home. The next morning, I returned with 2 friends. The bungalow was still there, but something was wrong. Every piece of equipment I left behind sat neatly stacked in the living room. Not scattered, not damaged, arranged perfectly, as if someone had carefully organized them. My camera was on top. The battery was dead. But when I charged it later, there was one new recording. A video I never filmed. The clip lasted 12 seconds. It showed me sleeping in my sleeping bag during the second night. The camera angle was from above. Someone had been standing over me while I slept, watching. At the end of the recording, the camera slowly tilted downward, and for a brief moment, the same pale face appeared, smiling directly into the lens. Then the video ended. I never went back. That was 4 years ago. The bungalow has since been demolished. People ask whether I finally got proof that ghosts are real. The truth is, I don't know what I encountered. Maybe it was a ghost. Maybe it wasn't. But I know one thing. Before that summer, I desperately wanted evidence. Now, I spend every day hoping there's a normal explanation for what happened. Because if there isn't, then whatever spoke to me in that bungalow may still be out there. And it knew I wasn't supposed to stay.